How's it going, everyone? My name is Shizukira, and today we're going to be taking a look at Yuki and what we know about her, as well as making sure you are as prepared as possible for when she releases in just a few days. So we saw Yuki earlier today, and we were able to see what some of her cards do, and we're even given some of her epiphanies. Now, we are missing Trickery Strike and Freezing Blade, which is going to make it hard for us to theory craft what her best deck is going to be, but we have enough to understand her playstyle, and that's what we're going to be going over today, talking about some of her better teammates, her partners, some of her chaos gear. Now keep in mind, Yuki obviously is not in the game yet, so some of these things can change on release, and when they do, I will make sure this is updated. The link for this is in the description if you want to take a look at it. But with that being said, let's go over what Yuki does and how to best build her. So Yuki's main mechanic is going to be based around this keyword inspiration. So what inspiration does is when a card is drawn by an ability, which means either another skill card, maybe even some attack cards, an ego skill, then it's going to get an extra effect. So let's look at an example down here. We have Flash Slash, which I'm just going to refer to as Flash from now on because I will mess up saying this many times. If you draw this card at the start of your turn, you will only get the effect deal 270% damage to all enemies for this first epiphany. But if you use another card to draw it, such as Gear Bag, or Rally, or even Yuki's own Prepare to Subdue, it will gain the additional effect of having its cost reduced by 1, and therefore becoming a 1-cost card. To give another example here, this Epiphany 3 will deal 180 to all enemies, but again, if it is drawn by another card or ego skill, it will gain the additional ability of having an additional hit. So it will hit twice instead of just once. And that is effectively how inspiration works. So the whole thing that we want to be doing with Yuki, from what we've seen of her kit, is that we want to be drawing as much as possible, but we're not really drawing to find a specific card. We're drawing to ensure that we can get these inspiration effects on Yuki's card. So some people may have seen her ego skill and been a little confused by it, because what it's going to do is take the attack cards in your hand and move them into your draw pile, which is weird because normally you want to draw those cards, but that's exactly why we're putting them back into the draw pile. Let's say, for example, you draw Flash, but it's not because of inspiration, it's just what you got at the start of your turn. Well, now you don't get that reduced cost. You would use her ego skill to put it back into the draw pile to then use a card like Prepare to Subdue, or again, you have choices like Rally, you have choices like Gear Bag to then draw the Flash card, and now you get that inspiration bonus on top of that. So because we are missing epiphanies, we won't dive too deep into the actual deck building for Yuki. That is something that we will do more on the day that she releases. I will have another guide for her after release going more in depth about the different builds that she can have. But for now, let's talk about the things we do know. So starting off with her recommended partners, the best in slot for her is of course going to be Westmacott. This is her signature partner. We can see over here when we come to the partner list that Westmacott is going to move a card from your hand to the top of the draw pile, which again is giving you the ability to redraw that card and therefore get the inspiration effect. This is something that is not going to be useful on really any other unit in the game. There will be situational times that maybe you could take advantage of this. You know, if you're thinking Rin, to maybe put her draw card on top of the deck so that you can have it next turn. There's a couple niche situations that you could use this, but really this is only a thing for Yuki. And then over here, we are going to have the increased damage for a combatant's attack cards when they draw their own cards. So again, this is something that can be used on Rin, but ideally you want to be using this on Yuki, especially because on the second effect, we have a damage increase for inspiration cards, which is not something that Rin has. So again, this is crafted specifically to be used on Yuki. You really don't want to be using her anywhere else. Next up, we have Lillian, who is a 4-star, and Scarlet, which is another 5-star. This is actually Rin's signature, ironically enough. And I will say ahead of time that Lillian is going to be a lifesaver for anyone who isn't going to be pulling Westmacott, and is the main reason you can completely skip Westmacott if you want to. She is not a must pull by any means. So of course we have the description here if you guys want to read that, but we will go over to the partner list to take a look at Lillian and Scarlet. So over here we have Lillian, and she is going to deal 100% damage to all enemies, and she's going to draw one of the assigned combatant's attack cards costing 1 or less. Now this is really important because again, Yuki wants to be drawing her own cards through abilities, and the ego skill of Lillian is an ability. So this is going to help with the consistency of Yuki's deck, which is really good. Following on from that, we then have the 10% damage boost to attack cards with a cost of 1 or less, which is really easy for Yuki. all of her attack cards are 1 cost except for Flash, which has the inspiration effect of being a 1 cost. So this is going to be really, really good for Yuki and cover all her attack cards. And then the additional effect we have here is a damage buff whenever we have a skill card, which is really, really good on Yuki. And this is why. Yuki's combo will often start with Prepare to Subdue, which is obviously a skill card, which, as well as giving damage itself, you then get the effect from Lillian to further increase that damage when you then do draw into a Flash Slash or Trickery Strike, whatever it may be. Now, this does stack up to 30%, and from what we've seen about Yuki's base kit, it might be hard to get that all the way up to 30 every turn, but with the use of some neutral cards and some other units that can help with card draw, which we will get to when we do talk about her teams, Lillian is by far and away the best 4-star that you can be using, and honestly, I would recommend this over using Scarlet. She is harder to get because it requires you to pull on the standard partner banner, and if you're not going to be spending to get the signature, it's unlikely that you've been using your currency on the standard partner banner, and therefore unlikely that you have Scarlet. If you do have her, you can feel free to use her. She is definitely very, very good, but I would not pull Scarlet for the purpose of putting her on to Yuki. And besides that, there aren't really any other striker partners that really do a whole lot for Yuki. If you don't have a Lillian and you aren't pulling Westmacott and don't have Scarlet, you can look into other options if you like, but there isn't really anything else that provides anything useful to Yuki, at least not nearly to the level that these 3 units do. Now, moving over to the memory fragments. Now, this is going to be super, super simple. Building DPSs in this game really is not that hard, and I think that goes for a lot of gacha games, to be honest. So, of course, we are going to be running the 4-piece order set. So whenever you use an attack card, it is going to give you an order card damage buff up to 3 stacks, which is really, really nice. Again, with the amount of draw that you want to have in a Yuki deck, it's going to be really easy to get those multiple attack cards in hand and to play them all out. And again, this is going to synergize really well with Lillian and with Scarlet. And then for your 2-piece, you're just going to take Executioner's Tool for the extra crit damage. You can take Blackwing for the extra attack percent if you don't have the Executioner's Tool pieces that you would like, but ideally you do want to move over to Executioner's Tool as soon as possible. For the substat priority, of course, we want equal amounts of crit rate and crit damage. After that, you're looking for attack percent, and after that, you are looking for flat attack. You can also pick up some ego recovery because it's never a bad stat to have on your subs. So whether you get flat attack or ego recovery really isn't important. The main one you're looking for is that crit rate and crit damage, and ideally attack percent on there if you can. Okay, also I have fixed this. This was on attack percent. That wasn't right. You want your 4th piece on either crit rate or crit damage. It depends what you need to have a better ratio of crit rate to crit damage. And especially since Yuki is a very heavy AoE unit, you really want to make sure that you are critting everything so that everything dies. The last thing you want with an AoE unit is to have just one enemy still alive. It's going to slow down your runs in Basin tremendously. So you do want to make sure you have a very comfortable amount of crit rate. But if you already have that, feel free to take crit damage. On the 5th piece here, very obvious, you just want to take order damage. Again, she is a damage dealer. She uses order cards. Square goes in the square hole. That simple. And then lastly, we have attack. The only other options you have here are health, defense, and ego recovery. And while I did mention ego recovery is good before, there's a reason that we leave it to the 4th stat. It's just not the priority on a DPS. Now, we will come back to the chaos gear because I will open the game to talk about it a little bit more because there's some things that are important. But for now, let's move on. Of course, we don't have her duplicates yet. On the day she comes out, this will be updated. All her duplicates will be here. But for now, we need to wait until release day. Now, for the best in slot team, we are looking at Cassius and Nia. Now, the whole point of this team is just to be cycling the deck as much as possible. So Cassius is going to help cycle the deck as well as providing morale buffs, and then Nia is going to help cycle the deck as well, while also providing her own buff of Decibel. So for those who don't know, Decibel is a keyword that at the moment is unique to Nia, and what it does is when you shuffle your deck, all allies perform an extra attack, and then this is removed, and there's a few other things to it, but essentially you deal damage every time you shuffle the deck. So this is a really, really nice buff to have, and you will be shuffling the deck a lot when it comes to using Yuki, especially when you're pairing that with Cassius as well. Now, most people will be able to put this team together very easily because Cassius and Nia are both 4-stars, so it's going to be very, very easy to get them. But there are some other options if you would like. So one of the alternatives is Veronica. Now, while Veronica doesn't do too much for Yuki, she does add more draw into your team, so it's really, really useful. And also, she stays out of the way and keeps your deck really small. so you don't have to worry about flooding the deck with cards that you don't want or trying to share out the AP between two different DPS. Veronica will just stay out of the way, doing her own thing, and occasionally providing more draw for Yuki. Now, Lucas is another 4-star option you can bring. This is going to give you a lot more AoE damage because he brings a lot of damage himself. And then on top of that, he does bring card draw and he has debuffs as well. He can apply Agony, Impair, Weaken, and all of this is AoE. So he brings a lot of utility and a lot of his own damage. We of course have Mika here as the kind of generic support. She's there to heal, provide AP. I think we are all very aware of what Mika does. The reason she is just left as an alternative is because when it comes to modes that aren't Chaos Exploration, Mika does fall off a little bit because the healing isn't as needed, and with a DPS like Yuki, you don't need a ton of AP generation. This isn't Haru that we're using, this is Yuki, she's much cheaper, more one-cost cards. You don't have the AP requirements that some other DPS would have. So because of that, you can afford to run units that don't generate as much, and that leaves Mika as just an alternative. And then lastly is Beryl. She provides more card draw, she also provides damage buffs, and she brings her own damage as well, especially with her retain mechanic. Those can just sit in the hand, and it even allows you to open up some more options for Yuki's gear because there is an item that does more damage based on the amount of cards in your hand. And with Beryl, you will be able to hold on to more cards and take advantage of that more often. Now, there are of course other units that can be used here as well. This is not all of them, but these are some of the ones that I'm going to be looking to pair with her on release day that I think have some of the most potential. Now we can start talking about her Chaos gear. Now, there are two important things to note when it comes to Chaos gear. The first one is that we already know from the video today that we will be getting new Chaos gear because we will be in a new area and new things will drop. So this is likely to change, but for now, with what we have in the game, these are the things that are going to be strongest for her. Of course, you can't equip all of these, but it's just things to look out for. If you see any of them, they are really, really good. Also here for Lepidola's Whip and Formica's Perfect Spear, there are legendary versions of this as well that bring a little bit less damage. But another thing to remember with Chaos gear is that Chaos gear, for the most part, all comes from specific planets. And the issue with these pieces of Chaos gear is that none of them come from the Order planet. So that's going to be this one here, Swamp of Judgment. But all the recommended Chaos gear comes from Blue Pot, Twin Star Shadow, City of Mist, and the Foretold Ruin. So hopefully in the new area, some of the gear we get is very good for Yuki, because right now Swamp of Judgment does not have a lot of things that she wants, and it's going to be really difficult if you need to go around building Yuki in all these planets where she is off element. Now, the unique items that are on Swamp of Judgment, generally speaking, are not going to be very good for her at all. There are some legendary items that are kind of usable. The Golden Rule is one of them, gives some damage, a little bit of shield. You have things like Cavalry of Lightning, which is going to give bonus damage if you are attacking things that have a shield. You also have Verdant Knight, which is going to give you 10% attack on even turns, which is fine, I guess. You have Flower of Life. If you can keep your HP up, then that's going to be giving you 30% damage. We also have Call of the Ancient Spirit, which is going to heal on critical. There are options here, but nothing that is really giving her the increased damage output that you would be getting if you were using one of the other recommendations. So again, when Yuki releases and we get to see the new equipment that is in the game, I will add them here as necessary. But for now, with what we currently know, these are the best things you can currently get in the game. It's just really annoying the build because none of them are on Swamp of Judgment, unfortunately. And with that being said, that is going to wrap up the early review and kind of theory crafting for Yuki. Of course, once she comes out, we will fill out a recommended deck for her. We will also include the epiphanies that are missing, as well as the manifest egos that are missing from here as well. This is just things that we don't know at the moment. Of course, I will be streaming on the day that she comes out. I will be pulling her as well as her partner, so we can start testing that stuff immediately. And then, of course, I will also add in here whether I think that she is worth pulling, especially for free-to-play players, giving some of my initial thoughts on what I think about the characters. I do also need to fill Wes McCott's role here. I'll do that soon. And then, of course, we have these units that are going to be coming up soon. We have Chizuru and Serennial that we know of. We still don't know about their partners, but I'm sure we'll find out about those soon. But with all that being said, reminder that this is in the description if you want to take a look at it, and I will see you all very soon. Stay safe.